Hi, my name is Shaquan Gallagher, a student at the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington, and I'm here today to talk to you about shoplifting. Shoplifting is a problem that comes with a $100 billion price tag, and it's affecting retail stores all across the world. England alone has seen their shoplifting rates double over the last year from what they've seen years prior, and harrowing stories come out of that country of retail workers being hit over the head with glass bottles for things as small as a Mars bar. Clearly, this is a problem that can no longer be ignored or sustained. So what's to be done? Well, the way I see it, there's only really one option, but I think it's best to go over the three things I've seen done the most to try and curb shoplifting, and we can decide together whether or not we think that they're effective or not. Those three options being: 1. Increasing the barriers to purchase certain consumer goods. Those consumer goods are things like paper towels and toilet paper, toothpaste, that kind of thing. Number 2, increasing the availability of police to retail stores. That basically just, having more police around makes people less likely to do crimes. And the third is getting rid of the self-checkout aisle. Let's start with the first. It's pretty simple. Basically, you take popular consumer goods, things that people are most likely to steal, so toilet paper, toothpaste, etc. You take it off the shelf or put it in a box or something, and then you leave a note that says, please go ask a retail employee to help you get this item. It's honestly not a bad way to stop people from shoplifting, because there's no way to get the item unless they try and sneak into the back room, in which case it's no longer shoplifting, it's trespassing. The only problem with this, though, is that in stores where we've seen it implemented, mostly CVS's in the Washington, D.C. area, while they have shown a decrease in shoplifting rates, they've also shown that simply adding that 1 or 2 extra steps to stop people from shoplifting is enough to dissuade a lot of consumers from buying an item by as much as 20% in some cases. So maybe not that one. How about police? Well, it does make sense, right? Having more police around a store is going to stop people from committing more crimes, and it definitely does. That's a verifiable fact. There's data to prove it. The only problem is that Walmart's key demographic is mostly lower to middle income families, in particular, minority communities. And I don't really need to get into how much beef there is between police and minority communities, but within those communities, having Walmart stocked with police all the time does often do a lot to make them feel uncomfortable shopping there, which decreases the amount of time they're willing to spend there, which decreases profits. So, not a terrible idea, but in the long run, maybe iffy. Now, the third thing I've seen done has actually been a little bit controversial, and that's when you guys at Walmart decided to get rid of the self-checkout aisle. Now, it's sort of easy to see why. Directly after being implemented, they saw a 400% increase in shoplifting rates at most stores. So we found our culprit. But aside from the shoplifting rates, these self-checkout aisles actually did a lot of good. I mean, they improved the consumer experience for sure. They made the transition between buying to checking out so much more seamless, and they basically eliminated lines. Not to mention, on your guys' side, the labor costs for not having to hire cashiers of any sort, that's immense. So it would be nice to be able to keep these. But then what do we do about the shoplifting? I think I have an idea on that. But for it, we have to look at the gaming industry. Now, for those of you who don't know, in the gaming industry, there is a gold industry standard, and that is that all AAA games for the last 20 years, regardless of inflation, regardless of how much the game costs to make, costs $60. Now, while that's worked for countries like us and Australia and England, it didn't work for countries like Brazil, where there's a large gaming industry, but where the average person makes around 40% of what the average American makes. But they still wanted to play the games. So what do? You steal it. Easy as that. And they did that for a long time, until the gaming industry caught up and implemented something called localized pricing. You've probably heard the term before, but it basically just means charging for the game what the people in that area are able to pay for it. So if that means selling the game in Brazil for 40% of what it costs here, or even as low as like 20%, then fine. Because what matters is they're buying the game. Estimated profit increases from the decision to localize the price of your games ranges from 10% to even as high as 30%. This works, like a lot. And while, yes, obviously the gaming industry and the retail industry isn't exactly the same, it does prove one thing, that if people have the means to pay for something, they're willing to pay for it. So the problem here is that people don't have the means, and obviously they don't. I mean, inflation is skyrocketing. We just came out of a pandemic, and job security is real flimsy right now. We're clearly sliding into what's looking to be a pretty serious recession, and people are struggling. So they're stealing things that they seem to think are necessities, stealing things for the sake of their families. How do you fix that? You lower your prices. Obviously, again, things aren't exactly the same as the software industry, but for around the last 10 years, Walmart's maintained a pretty consistent 24% profit margin on everything they've sold. You guys can afford to take a pretty sizable hit to that profit margin. And the benefits to doing so are huge. Not only would you get back a large percentage of that money that's currently being stolen right now, but you wouldn't need to hire as many cashiers and could maintain some of your self-checkout aisles. And it gives you the PR benefit of being able to look like the company that cares about the poorest communities it serves. This is a rare chance where doing the right thing and doing the best thing for once coincide. Don't squander it. Thank you for your time.